A word to the wise, we are an explicit podcast tackling content with adult themes as well as entering spoiler territory if you aren't caught up with us. We are tackling the entirety of Mistborn, The Final Empire, book number 1 today. With that, let's get started.
Hey there, this is Cross.
And I'm PJ.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your intoxicating weekly book club.
We finished another book.
We did. How many books is that for you now, PJ?
It's a number. I haven't mastered counting yet, but it's somewhere around 6.
And 2 comics, I guess.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, today is our wrap-up episode for Mistborn, The Final Empire, like Lindsay said in the intro, and we've got our great friend, close friend, lifelong friend, I'm sure she'll make fun of me the whole time for saying friend 4 times in a row, Lindsay Lundeen on the show.
Hey.
Recent guest on Short Pours as well for the romance episode that you may have heard on Monday. If you haven't, go listen to it. It's so fucking good.
Yes, you have to. Required listening.
It is a joy. We're super glad to have you here
I'm excited
chat
to
with
be
us.
here. This is so fun.
Yeah. But before we go too far, we like to generally introduce with what we're drinking. So we'll kick it off here. Lindsay, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a drink that I like to call the Nobility. It is just champagne, specifically Ernest Rapinoe Epernay Brut. I got it from a friend, and I'll open it here in a second once we're all done introducing our drinks for some lovely ASMR for you all. I'm here to give the people what they want, Cross. Your podcast has been sorely missing ASMR, although PJ's voice gets close.
See, damn it. This is a recurring funny theme that actually came up. No, it's hysterical because recently I joined like a Discord and whatever, and we were just chatting back and forth. And they're like, "Oh, what are you reading?" And I'm like, "Well, just wrapped up Mistborn for the podcast, blah blah." And they're like, "Oh, you have a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, what is it?" And I was like, "Well, we're called Words and Whiskey." And people went and listened to it, and they're like, "Holy shit, PJ has a great voice." And I'm like, "Fuck you," every time. So that's why for my birthday I'm getting myself a microphone.
He seems to think it's simply because I have a better microphone than him.
At least it would put us on the same playing field.
I think it's because I'm a better person.
It's going to be so sad when Crossland gets this better microphone and PJ still has the ASMR voice.
It's true. It's true.
That's really going to knock him down a peg. That'll be a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it.
So we love the Nobility. That's great. PJ, what are you drinking?
I have a drink that I have titled the Strawberry Pac-Man. So I wanted to do something tiki because I have this tiki mug and I haven't used it in a while.
Cute.
So
where did you get that mug from?
I genuinely don't remember.
Didn't you get it from what's it
Did
called?
I get it from Psycho
Susie's?
Susie's? I might have bought it from Psycho Susie's. Yep, that sounds right.
If anyone doesn't know what Psycho Susie's is, it's a bar in Minneapolis, Minnesota that is tiki themed, but like tacky tiki themed, and it has carpet, like atrocious carpet throughout the whole thing. And when you order a drink, you get a little mug. It's great. You should go.
Yeah. They call themselves a tiki motor lounge.
Yes.
So like all the food items are like named after classic cars. It's real weird, but I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I don't have a lot of the mainstay tiki ingredients. And I only had white rum and like just vanilla rum that I have in my freezer. So,
PJ's drinking
I
like
threw
a
something together.
College sorority girl.
Exactly. So I went with 1.5 ounces of white rum, 1.5 ounces of vanilla rum, 1.5 ounces of lime juice, and 1.5 ounces of a strawberry syrup that I made. And then garnish that with a lime wedge and a mint sprig. And it's really good. I think it's a little bit too sweet. I think I'd up the white rum content just a little bit or cut back on the strawberry syrup. But anyway, it's delicious, and I'm going to probably make more of them.
Like more soon or like...
Maybe for the rest of the day. I don't know.
Depends on how
it's
the day
morning,
goes.
By the way, this is a morning podcast.
This is a brunch podcast, which is why I'm drinking champagne. I'm drinking a deconstructed mimosa.
Are you just biting into an orange, or?
No, yeah,
there's no
absolutely.
orange
Feel
involved.
free to open it. That's.
Oh, we gotta let her do her ASMR thing. Let's go.
Okay, now I feel weird.
Hopefully your champagne opens easier than mine did this morning.
You had champagne this morning?
Well, I'm having it in my cocktail.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
I'll talk about it in a second. I'll do it.
No.
I believe in you.
You guys, I didn't think this would be so hard.
Or just twist back and forth.
Twisting. Yeah, twisting is also good.
I'm gonna make Landon come help me.
Yes.
1 second.
Excellent.
Here, I'll put it on speaker
while-
so you want the audio.
Oh, sounds good.
Hey, can you come help me open this champagne bottle?
Yeah, I'll be right up.
Thanks.
Excellent.
Sorry for throwing a wrench in that.
Guest appearance on the show again.
All of my roommates are on the show. PJ, have you heard that guest appearance yet?
He showed me the clip. He sent me the clip. It's hilarious.
So good. It was so well timed.
While we're waiting for that, following up my cocktail, I've got Noon Whistle's Don't Worry, Be Gummy Hazy IPA. Never heard of Noon Whistle before,
No.
but they are out of Illinois, I think. So
Why does it say be gummy? Is it like sweet?
this- just the name. I don't know. Fruity.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Cheers.
pretty
Are
good.
you
Yeah,
already
cheers.
on the IPA?
I switch back and forth between my drinks.
Yeah. Listen, someone recently said to me that you're living in luxury when you are consuming multiple liquids at one time. So good.
Wasn't
for
that
you,
Tiff? I think it was Tiff in the romance
that Tiff?
episode. Is like, yeah, Tiff was like, I'm a 3-drink gal. That's really important.
Okay, Landon's here. He is. This is my roommate Landon. He's going to open the champagne bottle in front of the microphone.
Hey, Landon,
Hello.
Oh my god!
don't hit the
Wait.
computer. It'll catch the sound.
Didn't know this feels risky.
You can use this like do this and then go like this and just open it like that, so it goes into your hand.
It looks like it's going. It's starting to go,
Yeah.
which is good.
Brian.
Yeah,
Thanks, Landon.
No problem.
awesome. Woo, Landon.
If you take out like all the surrounding audio, that'll be really cool. If it's like,
It
here,
will be.
I'll open it
It'll
on the
be
show.
really cool.
Crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. That was all
Yeah.
me.
Awesome.
Okay,
Um,
keep going.
Do you
I'm
have a
sorry.
glass, or are you just drinking it out of the
I'm
bottle?
drinking out of the bottle.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely next level. That's fantastic.
That is the nobility.
Cheers. That is truly the nobility. We love that.
Cross, what are you drinking?
Thanks, Lindsay. Lindsay did this for me. She played your role generally in the other show, which
I
went
role played as
fantastically.
PJ.
That's true. It's true. I am having a similar drink. Like we said, this is kind of a brunch episode. So it's not quite the nobility. You know, it might be like half-blooded nobility, might be a minor descendant. But I'm having the Survivor's End, which is what I'm calling it, which is really just a pomegranate mimosa. But one of the tricks that my dad recommended, because I was like, what's a good brunchy cocktail that isn't just a mimosa? And he was like, well, do a pomegranate mimosa. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, pomegranate juice, champagne. And I was like, okay, easy enough. And he's like, and 2 dashes of bitters. I was like, huh, that's interesting. And so I tried it with and I tried it without. Definitely do the bitters. The bitters is the way to go. It adds a level of depth and complexity to it. So similarly, Lindsay, I have an entire bottle of champagne split, but this is the first glass. The rest is pre-made for backup because I'm not drinking a beer to follow this up. I'm just having this cocktail repeatedly.
There's
So-
nothing like champagne in a Yeti cup.
Well, I'm gonna pour it into this. It's just to keep it cold. Damn it.
So before the episode, Crossland, you were talking about some bougie bitters that you are playing with. What kind of bitters did you use for this cocktail?
So I did actually. I tried 2 different varietals because I was like, I got to figure out what works best.
Varietals. Okay.
Of bitters. Well, I have like 5 different kinds of bitters, and I'm looking at buying like an 8-pack of like crazy fucking bitters, right? So this in particular is the Hella Aromatic bitter, and so it is more flowery, but it is close to Angostura. Not quite the same as like a standard bitter, but it's interchangeable in my head. I like it more because it's a little bit more herbaceous.
Who makes that?
Hella.
Oh, Hella is the brand name. Okay.
Yeah. So this is Hella Bitters, but I did try the hopped grapefruit, which from Bittermans, which is my favorite bitter that I have. Highly recommend that for anyone who's looking for a citrus bitter. I prefer it to orange bitters 10 to none. It's not overwhelmingly grapefruit, but you still get the citrus. Like, it's so good.
Perfect.
And I think it's that hop, like the fact that they brew it or make it small batch with hops is, I think, what does it.
Sweet.
So, yeah. that's that. But yeah, I have an array of bitters, which is strange.
Do you have a favorite?
I do. It's the hopped grapefruit is for sure my favorite bitter.
Nice.
Of the ones. I did get a Zocotl mole bitter, which is like a Mexican chocolate bitter. Also very tasty in the right drink. Like, it's perfect for a warm beverage, or in winter, and it's definitely like the accompanying bitter for like a coffee cocktail or something like that.
That sounds awesome.
Like a sweetened coffee cocktail.
So I bought a 12-pack of LaCroix Pure for one of my cocktails.
What is the difference between LaCroix and LaCroix Pure?
It's not flavored.
It's LaCroix flavored?
No, it's not. It's not flavored at all.
LaCroix is just a whisper of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
there
a
you
whisper
go.
of
Okay,
a thought of oat.
I missed the joke entirely.
It's okay, PJ. Girls can't be funny. I understand why you'd be confused.
Well, I mean, generally that's true, but no. So just sparkling water, but I've been drinking that with a couple dashes of bitters throughout the day at work.
Look at you.
So I've been switching up different bitters. It's been a lot of fun. So
yeah, I'll have to
bitters talk.
Go through the Words and Whiskey archives once I finally move and have my own space so I can get some nice bar things like fancy bitters.
It is. Yeah. It's nice. I'm not gonna lie. That building out the bar has been definitely the perk of the show in the end here. Mumble, mumble, mumble. Okay, with that, we go into the discussion. So we're here to talk about Mistborn, the Last Empire, or the Final Empire, not the Last Empire. The interesting thing here is that you've read all the books, Lindsay, so we have to tread cautiously so that we don't spoil PJ on things to come.
I was having a hard time with that, thinking about some of my answers. So
right, like it is shockingly difficult, and I've been also having to parse my words anytime we say anything because the story is so layered. We'll just put it that way. But before we really dive into it, I just want to ask how do you know us? What's your relationship? When did you meet us?
Oh no. Well, I know Crossland because we competed against each other in high school speech and debate, and I think I have a 100% kill record on Crossland, and if it's not 100%, it's pretty close. We'll see if we can find some pictures.
I beat you in a made-up category, which is
category?
Funny.
Was it extent?
The conversation. Do you remember the conversation thing at the tech meet?
I did that.
Where you really became friends?
Yes.
Right. And I beat you.
I'm so glad. I'm glad you I'm glad you have that. We'll find a picture if anyone's interested. We looked so cute. And then I know PJ through Crossland. Thankfully, Crossland has just been a wonderful bridge to many wonderful people in my life. So I had to get through the Crossland slog to get to the Peach, and I'm so thankful for that.
That's pretty much slog.
Yeah.
I could get so much more detailed with this, and I'm trying to figure out what level is appropriate.
I mean, the reality is we can always cut it, right? Like, that was the trick with the romance episode, is do what you want.
Perfect.
But
Crossland has dated a handful of my friends. I am Crossland's personal romance manager.
You're doing real great work there.
I mean, if we're looking at the track record, not really.
No, that was the joke.
He's never lonely, ladies and gentlemen, and that's all that matters.
But that was a sick burn. Yeah, you beat me in everything in original oratory, but that was my second, third category, depending on the meet. But
okay.
I feel you. Yeah. Okay.
Whatever makes you
were much better. You were much better than I was. There's no question there.
Yeah. So I think if we're wondering why I was invited to this podcast, it's because of my excellent skills as an orator. And
you're very well read, and people asked us to bring on another friend because they enjoy the couple of times that we've had some friends on to chat with. And you were my first thought because you were also fresh off this book series.
That's so
it just made a lot of sense. So
yeah, bring some divine feminine energy to this podcast.
Yes, between this and the romance podcast, I think we got a lot of divine feminine energy.
I'm so glad. PJ, are you feeling the divinity?
Absolutely. Basking in it.
Are you feeling the divinity in this Chili's tonight?
Hell yeah. All right. So we are going to kick it off here with a couple of softballs, nothing absolutely crazy here. I kind of want to start with if you had the choice, which Allomantic ability would you choose? Just kind of a fun, and why? You only get one. You can't be a Mistborn.
I can start.
I have to think.
Yeah. Fire away, Peach.
I think I'd go with, oh God, why am I blanking on which one's which? The steel pulling, right?
Iron is pull.
Iron is
yeah. It's on the bottom of the document.
Steel is push. Iron is pull.
Oh, I'd go with iron then because I don't know. Pulling myself forward sounds like fun. Not having to actually like sit up and stand up, just being able to like
it's like a pair of roller skates and just like pull himself around.
I'd very strategically like place a bunch of metal all over my house so I can just pull myself wherever. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Kelsier for sure has done that in like his sex dungeon, so like, why not you?
The secret history of Kelsier is really the sex dungeon. That's great. I love that. So you just pull yourself around.
Okay, imagine sitting on like a rolling office chair and just pulling yourself across the hallway.
Or like one of those little scooters that you used in elementary school gym class that always ran over your fingers. But now you don't have to use your fingies, so you can just like scoot around on it.
Yeah, you're so right. I'd forgotten those. Those are just furniture moving dollies. Like that's all those were.
Yes.
They bought and entertained children with furniture dollies.
Yeah, primary colored furniture dollies. And they were great.
Yeah, right.
I always called them piano carts. Is that the actual like name for them?
They're used for moving pianos for sure. I think that just tells us all you're really bougie.
It does. It definitely communicates.
Sure.
That.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever used them to move a piano, but like that's what I knew them as.
Piano carts. So I was going to also go with iron because I'm lazy, and it would be nice, I think, for everyone in my life for me to be able to just like pull things to me instead of being like, hey, will you go in the kitchen and grab this thing I need? But I'm not going to go with that because PJ already did. So I'm going to go with zinc. I think I would be a great rioter. I like stirring the pot. I think it would be helpful in my career. And I just think, it would be so satisfying and useful. Can you tell I'm a Slytherin? Just sit there and like see two people talking. I mean, it would also be cute, right? Like you see two people talking and you're like, wow, I'm really proud of Crossland for shooting his shot with my 8th friend. So I'm going to riot her emotions and help her feel more compelled towards Crossland. Or yeah, I can think of a lot of places where that would be useful. So I'm going to go with Zinc.
8th friend. How dare you? That was good though. Yeah, no, and like literally what you said within the sentence makes sense in the context of being a rioter. So like you are here to stir the pot, and I love that for you.
I'm also like, oh God, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in the ass. I'm about to become an attorney, and I feel like being a rioter would be so useful in court. Probably entirely unethical, but like in the Mistborn realm, extremely useful.
Yeah.
I mean, is it unethical if your entire point of your speech is to riot people's emotions already? You're just helping that along.
You're just kind of nudging it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think that's a complexity that hasn't been, fully addressed.
I think Sanderson needs to write another book about a lawyer with rioting abilities.
A legal drama?
Nothing like some fancy legal drama.
I love writing. I've been like really kind of trying to figure out what the hell I would do here, because I feel like steel has an interesting usefulness to like being able to fly, right? Like pushing is better than pulling in every context.
Disagree.
I don't know what you guys are on. Pushing. Okay. All I have to do is I have metal behind me and I push myself forward on the roller skates. Like, you could launch yourself up into the air and catch yourself on the way down to like soften your blow. You can totally fly with steel. You can't fly with iron.
What you can't do is do the little like mimey rope pulling motion that you can definitely do if you're pulling with iron. So I think
in the club, like
it's a clear winner.
I think you brought up something, Lindsay, that I hadn't thought about, but I am absolutely on board with, is like cooking. Just being able to like pull knives or utensils or pots or pans all over the place.
Pulling knives would be very dangerous.
You gotta be good at it.
Like I'm sitting here, I'm cozy. Like I said this in the romance episode. Like to read, I need to be cozy. I'm not moving for 8 hours. I have my book, I have my shit. But inevitably at some point, I'm like, fuck, I forgot this one thing. And to just be like, I'm cozy. Thing is in my hand. Incredible. Yeah. Ideal.
That's fair. Fine.
No,
I'm more like thinking about exploring the world. Yeah, yeah. I love that we both say that. Like that is definitely my go-to is like, yeah, it's okay to be wrong. Like, Fuck. So I was also between, not iron, I was between steel and brass soothing, right? Because I think that ultimately, I think Breeze even says this in the book, right? And soothing are effectively the same, but it's just really a difference of how and in what way you impact someone's emotions, right? So I think soothing would be good. Copper is relatively useless, right? In our contexts, I guess. Like, no one's hunting Mistborn, so that
you know of.
Well, fair point.
Yeah, speak for yourself, Crossland.
Yeah, fucking Magneto's hiding among us, you know? Like, I can't help but think of Magneto every time I think of Mistborn. Like, they're interchangeable in my mind.
I feel like bronze would suck because all you can do is sit there and, like, have FOMO, right? Like, you can sit there and be like, there are 3 people with allomatic powers in this room. I'm technically one of them, but the other 2 can actually do things. And you just have to, like, sit there with your knowledge of who has cool powers, knowing that your only cool power is knowing who has cool powers.
I feel like that's something that I asked earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was how do those people figure out that they have powers in general?
Bronze or anyone.
Or bronze and copper. Copper specifically, because they can't feel their own power.
Right. That's a good question.
You burn the metal, though, intentionally. So, like, you know that you're doing it, right? Like,
I mean,
but they don't know what they're doing.
Like, Vin did.
Like, they don't know that anything's happened.
Vin knew she was burning something, though, I guess. She just didn't know what it was.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder, I feel like you have to have a seeker on your team, and then they can tell that, like, this smoker is, like, accidentally hiding allomatic pulses, maybe? I'm not sure.
Can they know that, though? Because how would they know? Like, because that blocks their power.
Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, my God, you're right.
Bronze sucks. I think it would not be fun to be a seeker.
No. I don't know, PJ. That's a great question.
Like, how do you learn? How do you learn that that's your power?
That you're a copper specifically.
Somebody else stumbling into something. I don't know.
Yeah, you would. I think that the way that you would discover it is someone else would be like, I fucking what? Like, you would have to run into a seeker, basically, who's like, oh, I can't tell what you're doing. Are you good, buddy?
Yeah, you'd like have a seeker meet cute who like walks into the bar and is like, I'm looking for allomatic pulses. There's none here, but I know that person's a Mistborn or something. And then they come, they figure it out or something, and they're like, hey, PJ, small child who apparently recently had a traumatic event and snapped and became a seeker. Did you know? Or sorry, a smoker. Did you know you have magic powers? You're a wizard, Harry. And then your life changes. That's a great question.
I don't know if I've ever been a small child. Let's be real.
PJ's always been taller than
this
everyone.
Is my large baby, PJ. I've also always thought, though, that being like a pewter, a thug, would be really cool. Just because you'd be jacked, and that'd be sick. And I don't know. I've always been drawn to that in any world that has, powers and stuff. There's always just like the strong boy. I was like, that'd be really fun. Especially if you're like a small build person, they kind of, Sanderson kind of describes thugs as tending to be like a bit larger, but it'd be so sick, kind of like Vin, to just be super small and be able to like throw a car. That'd be so awesome.
I totally agree. I think that thug is really, all the thugs have like very big himbo energy, but I think that it would be really, really fun to have like, it would be so great if there was like another small Vin-like character of whom was the thug, because it would just be so disproportionately cool.
Or even just to like not get tired. Be like, I'm gonna run a marathon and I will win it because I'm a thug.
Yeah. Oh man, and the whole like pewter dragging thing is just such an interesting concept too, to like tag into that. The like period, the like limits, the upper limits of these things are really interesting as they've been explained so far. So cool.
I feel like pewter dragging is just like doing cocaine, but you could probably experience that in the real world if you really wanted to.
There is direct access. Don't do drugs, kids, but like if you're an adult, so, figure it out.
Don't do drugs, but I'm also not your mom.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Do drugs.
Do drugs.
I support you. Do
it.
BJ says you're going to have a good time.
PJ will not be held liable if you don't, though.
Thank you, Lindsay, for the PSA.
Don't get PJ's lawyer dad involved.
Yeah, true. All right, so we basically settled on we've got a lurcher, we've got a rider, and we've got a soother. That's what we got here as our little crew, our heist crew. It does sound like a party, yeah. But one where PJ is just dragging himself around the room.
on the finger smushing scooters.
I would only wear rollerblades. Let's be real.
Fun fact, my dad was in one of the first rollerblade advertisements.
Really?
His friend Scotty invented rollerblades, and my dad was asked to be... He's either wearing, like, representing the hockey crowd or the bandy crowd. I'll find it. I'll send a picture.
I'd imagine it's got to be hockey, right?
Well, yeah, because in the advertisement, there's like a lot of, like, there's like a figure skater, a hockey player, a skier, a cross-country skier, like that kind of stuff. And so I think somebody else is hockey, and I think my dad is bandy. Because bandy is just hockey, but without boards and with curved sticks and a ball. It's like soccer hockey.
Got it.
Anyway.
Saki.
Yeah.
Saki. I don't think they like that term.
That's actually really derogatory, PJ. I can't believe you'd say that.
Yeah.
Damn it.
How dare you?
It's embarrassing for you.
So there's a lot of things that happen inside of this book, right? So talking about the book itself for a little bit, there's a ton of different plot moments and beats that happen. I think that one of the more interesting things here is that we're obviously introduced at the beginning of the book to Kelsier, and he's kind of set up to be this like larger than life mentor. And then in the end, he kind of dies. And it kind of felt like it was coming. My first read kind of felt like it was coming out of left field because I was so bought into the character that I couldn't imagine it happening. I don't know. What'd you guys think about the death and the future pressing implications of his death, specifically to PJ, who was not read further?
Your first question about the book is, what's up with Kelsier's death?
What's up with Kelsier and Kelsier's death?
I think it makes a lot of sense from the way that this sort of house of cards was being built, of building to a messiah, building to a martyrdom. And it was hard to see, but in hindsight, it makes a ton of sense, especially given that conversation that he had with Vin saying that she was able to stop him from doing this before. Like, he was planning on basically doing the same thing with that army before. And becoming a martyr then. Like, he just had a death wish the entire time. But needed to build up his
brand,
his story, his legacy, his brand. Yeah. And be notorious enough or
Kelsier's a content creator.
Viral.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, but that's the exact point, is like becoming a folk hero and turning that into becoming a messiah. So I think using that going forward will be a great tool for anyone leading any sort of resistance, which does that exist anymore? Like, whatever, like, you wouldn't call it the resistance, really. It's just the populace now. Using him as sort of a theocratic character of sorts to lead the people, I think makes a lot of sense.
Do you think he's actually dead?
Oh my God. You just opened up a can of worms for PJ.
No, it's something I thought about. Yes, I think he is. I think there's going to be some fuckery with the Khandra and like, how does memory actually work? Because there's questions about that with Lord Renew and what memories he actually has access to. And like, he seems to be able to remember things from before he was like impersonated.
Right.
Yeah. I'm still not fully clear on how that works. So I think, yes, he's dead, but I don't think gone.
Gone but not forgotten.
Something to that effect.
Cool.
I am like, as far as these books go and like characters in general go, I go very conspiracy theorist with them. Like, I do not trust anything.
PJ is full blown, like, absolutely not taking it.
Hey, I mean, it started in his, personal life and like his normal life, and now it's in his literary life. It's okay. We can all have a conspiracy theorist friend. You guys, PJ right now is wearing a tin hat. There is aluminum foil over his windows.
I don't understand why you guys aren't. You know about it.
PJ has sent me multiple warning texts about how my veins are coursing with 5G and how...
It's because you drink tap water.
It's because I drink tap water. Yeah. Between that and my multiple vaccines, Bill Gates is running my brain. Everybody, you should buy whatever new thing Microsoft is posting. Blinked twice if I need help.
I mean,
I'm blinking.
It's true, but I see it as a positive.
Good.
Please go get vaccinated.
Thank you for the proper PSA.
Please go get vaccinated so Bill Gates can watch you.
He has our best interest in mind.
Submit to the billionaire overlord. How'd we get it? Oh yeah, PJ conspiracy. Yeah, 5G. Got it. All right. That's how we arrived here at this point.
I always find Kelsier's death really interesting in the first book because I don't know. And maybe if PJ's the conspiracy theorist, maybe I'm the pessimist because I just like never 100% know if Kelsier's dedication to the cause was entirely earnest or if he was just trying to be edgy, right? And I think it's a little bit of A and a little bit of B. Like I think he really believed in it, but I don't know if he wanted to die at the end of this book. And so to me,
it's Marcia's perspective too, right? Like that's Marcia's whole thing. Right. He's questioning Kelsier's motives. So
right, yeah.
What's the alternative though? Like what would be the motivation for his actions if it wasn't to martyr himself?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
No. That's a good question. I don't know, glory. And this is why I feel like a pessimist. Like I feel bad, saying this, but I feel like it's a little fuck around and find out, right? He really wanted, sometimes I wonder if he really wanted this fame and glory and then play stupid games, win stupid prizes. He ends up dying. And he's like, oh, I wanted everyone to think I was cool with dying, but I don't know if I was actually cool with dying.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the earnestness with Kelsier is definitely in question, right? Like the motives, Kelsier's motives seem positively motivated, but there were a couple of moments, even in this reread, when I was thinking about his conversations with Ham and like who he could trust individually was, I think, a big moment where I was like, oh shit, he doesn't even necessarily believe in all of the crew at this point. Like he's got questions about the crew. And then on top of that, he snaps at Ham and says like, it's my army. And that's completely the wrong perspective from a guy who is, I mean, he's not wrong, but it is meant to be. It does bring up the question of his intentions,
right? And I don't want to shit on Kelsier because actually I really like him a lot as a character. There's just sometimes where I'm wondering if he likes the pageantry and the excitement of being this person a lot of people look up to, or if he's 100% genuine about it. Because I feel like if he was 100% genuine about it. Not to say that he's, even less than 50% genuine, right? But if he was 100% genuine about it, I feel like he would be a bit more careful about his actions and his communications and a bit more precise. He'd be a bit more precise with what he does. Where to me, sometimes it feels like he sets rules, he ignores the rules, and then he feels very comfortable just kind of doing whatever he wants with no consequences. I'll follow the rules when it serves me, but I'm just glad everyone's kind of following me.
So I think that point is something that I have questions about in general, and maybe it's just not covered so much by the text. But their care and secrecy that goes into like their operations doesn't get covered so much, so it feels like they're being very out in the open for the most part. But it also seems like Kelsier is probably one of the most wanted men in the realm. So are they being careful? Are they being
right? Are they being careful, quiet? Or is the state just incompetent?
or does the Lord Ruler genuinely not care? Like we kind of learn towards the end of the book that the Lord Ruler wants to kind of cull the nobility every century or so, and Kelsier is ushering that in. As opposed to infighting, it's a rebellion, but it's all the same to him. So is he actively like not letting the Inquisitors go and take down Kelsier because he's helping him? Or are they just actually being careful and it's not being addressed in the novel? Right. Like, does the Lord Ruler 100% know what's going on? And he's just like, oh, cool, someone else gets to do it for me this decade. Right. That's a good question, yeah.
That's kind of how I think about it, and I picture it a little bit. I think is that he sees this as just an opportunity, and he believes truly that he is the sliver of infinity and right next to God in terms of his almighty abilities and powers. And so I think he's just kind of he's letting everything happen in his own regard. I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of it is. I think the Lord Ruler is totally taking advantage of Kelsier and thinks that he's like outwitting him in his own right until he becomes such a problem where he's like, all right, I have to put you down. You're a dog. So, yeah. And I think that point is also backed up by the idea that the Inquisitors are like salivating at the opportunity to be the one to take Kelsier down, as if they've been held back from doing it. Yeah. Yeah. And then we get like, especially when we think about the Inquisitors, salivating at that opportunity, we also have them chasing around Vin, right, and hunting Vin, who's obviously our actual main character, and we haven't talked about Vin at all yet, but it is so interesting to me that they were clearly actually struggling to find Vin, but they could have probably found Kelsier. They just didn't assume association, is my only rationality for them not being able to track Vin and find her, because they were after her hardcore.
And we're actively hunting her.
Right. We could get not conspiratorial, but we could think about it too much and say they probably didn't expect this person to be a very tiny teenage girl who's wreaking all this havoc. I think that's also addressed in the book a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, they had their suspicions that it was Tresting's child, or not Tresting, excuse me, Tavidian's child, right? The lead of the ministry. So they were pretty sure that they knew that this was the kid that they'd been hunting because they had caught and killed Reen before, and so they're like very aware of her existence, but probably didn't know her capabilities, were blissfully unaware of what she was capable of.
And they definitely knew it was her and who she was because they caught on because of her soothing of one of the obligators. So she was in the room, they saw her, so they knew what to look for, but I don't know.
No, that's real. I guess that's true.
It is an interesting, it's still a quandary.
She's just that good.
Yeah. we haven't talked, let's talk about Vin. Let's kick it off to our girl, right? As we've become fond of calling her. She is, I think, a fantastic character from the ground up. And I think that she is very interesting because she fits into the, you're chosen, you've got these special abilities, blah, blah, kind of trope, but not in the way that a lot of other protagonists do, not in the kind of bland, Harry Potter's magical and cool, don't get me wrong, the letter of selection is a really neat process, but it does kind of have that, you're the chosen one. This does not have that feeling, necessarily. I didn't get that at the very least. What did you guys think?
I don't think that in this book there's that feeling.
There is to a certain extent Kelsier revealing to her how substantially powerful she is, and how special she is. But it doesn't have that same feeling, I feel like. Yeah,
she just is a Mistborn. She is a more powerful Mistborn, as we obviously learn.
You're a Mistborn, Harry.
Can we just imagine how different that series would be if it wasn't magic, but it was Mistborn secretly hiding in the world? Yeah. What about Vin? How do we all feel about Vin in general as a character?
I'm trying to wait for PJ to go because I don't want to say something that PJ doesn't know.
No. I felt like she provided a great canvas for growth. In a very, very cool, full-fledged way. Because we got this timid, small person, both, emotionally and physically. And we see the entire growth to her becoming this very confident, full-fledged Mistborn. And we also see a lot of humanity within her. With her sort of gallivanting as a noblewoman among the nobility and falling into that sort of comfort and how would you call it? Becoming afraid of the idea of losing that part of her life and revealing who she truly is because she just enjoys it so much. And I think that is something that you'd probably see with most of humanity. So there was the parallel there. And just the personal growth in so many different ways. So I think she was a great canvas.
One of the cool things I think about Vin in that respect is that a lot of her growth in this first book happens because of other people lighting the way for her. And I think that's important because I know we all have those people in our lives that have lit the way for us to make personal growth. And I'm excited to see, not thinking about the other books that I have actually read, I'm excited to see, where that personal growth comes more from within. And there is that internal personal growth in this first book, but it is absolutely catalyzed by other people, I think, almost every step of the way. It's just interesting to see where that goes in the future. I also really appreciate that Sanderson writes Vin like a protagonist. She is a girl and she is one of the only main females in this entire first book, right? But she is above all else a protagonist. I appreciate that he doesn't try to weirdly low-key sexualize her. I like that he doesn't really put a ton of stake in like in the romance of the book. It's just kind of like there, but I have different thoughts on Elend and Vin's romance. And I think she's like this powerful girl who finds community and who sits in her community and who's able to finally trust again. And I think that's really powerful. And I appreciate that about Vin. I do also appreciate, I think PJ kind of hinted at this too, that Sanderson allows Vin to simultaneously exist between two worlds. I think especially male authors will often say like, either this girl is the cool girl, power punch girl, she wears pants, or this girl is the frilly, like cutesy girl, she's so sweet and demure, blah, blah, blah. And Vin struggles with that in the book, right? Like she goes between loving and hating the balls, loving and hating the dresses, until finally she's like, no, it's okay if I like this stuff. That's kind of fun. I can be a powerful Mistborn bitch and also want to look cute. And I think that's really cool, especially for a book that's not super female heavy. I appreciate that from Sanderson.
I think I think it's a kind of a brilliant move to make Vin move between the two worlds, right? Because she is, it shows a possibility of what she could be, in addition to giving her the kind of permission to act a certain way, which I think is good. And then in addition, kind of like you were saying, her journey really is lit by other people, because her number one problem is trusting other people because of her shitty brother Reen. So it is kind of like, I see exactly what you're saying that it is mostly external influence, not personal growth that way. But I think the biggest thing that's personal growth is her ability to trust people, because these people are trustworthy. And that's kind of the biggest thing, is to say, hey, some people are better than other people. Like, right. And that had to be, go ahead, PJ.
Oh, I think another point to make is her inner monologue is Reen for the most part, like pushing her forward. It's in the voice of Reen. And towards the end, we start seeing her take quotes from other people, not Reen, like specifically Kelsier. And sometimes it's in spite of, and to prove him wrong, like saying that there's so much more to learn about friendship, stuff like that. But seeing her be able to internally break Reen as her sole, like, motivating inner monologue is another personal growth aspect.
No, that is super cool, right? Because there's almost this like trauma aspect to it, where Reen is, like you said, running her internal compass, and to see her kind of place it on somebody else. It is interesting that she, I think in this first book specifically, no matter what, is always kind of filling her internal monologue with somebody else that's not her. And so I found that to be an interesting journey for her as well. Like, okay, she's abandoned Reen, but now it's Kelsier. When is it going to be just Vin?
It's true. Like, when does it really get to be Vin just expressing herself and not relying on other people to kind of, form her inner monologue and like impact that directly? Yeah, I feel that for sure.
I do always find, I'll add something. I do always find the brother thing a bit weird in this first book, because as I was reading the first book, kept expecting Reen to just like show up, right? And he doesn't. And it just felt really weird. I don't know, it felt really weird to me. I think it makes sense later. And I'm trying not to like say anything, but that felt lacking.
So just to give you context, if you can't remember what happened in what book, we do get the reveal that Reen was tortured and refused to give up Vin.
Right.
Through the end, which I think gives something. It's misguided, but it's like it's an extreme version of tough love that doesn't need to exist in the extreme that it does.
It like redeems him a little bit, right? But I like kept expecting him to just like show up somewhere. I kept expecting him to walk out of the shadows and be like, Vin, I've been watching you. I'm so proud of you. Something like that. But yeah, he doesn't. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been talking in your brain the entire time. It hasn't been internal.
I've been speaking to you directly from the void. Couldn't happen. Let's talk about one of the really fun things I think that's inside of the story here too, is the kind of story within a story that we get, right? The logbook. PJ doesn't know the name of the character yet. It's revealed on the very first page of Well of Ascension, so it doesn't really matter, but we're referring to him as the logbook dude, or the not hero of ages.
Logbook bro?
Logbook, bro. Yeah. So I kind of want your perspectives on like the inclusion of the story within the story and the sort of the way that parallels the main story, and just thoughts on it in general as like a narrative device.
Something that I just realized. Now that we know that Rashik is the Lord Ruler and not the person that wrote the logbook, we don't technically know the gender of the person that wrote the logbook anymore, do we?
True. Yep.
Okay. Just idle thought.
Just flew into your brain. Yeah. No, nothing else actually identifies the gender of that individual.
I remember one of my questions with the logbook when it was revealed in the first book, right, was like, why would the Lord Ruler hang on to this? It's going to be so detrimental, or it could be so detrimental to the Lord Ruler. Why hang on to it?
Mm-hmm. So we had a whole conversation in our last episode about this, but I would love to get your take on it. PJ, do you want to throw your weight behind Lindsay's opinion? Because I know that's where you side on this.
I don't.
You don't remember our conversation? That's fair.
Nope.
We never remember our conversations. So I think I mentioned this to Lindsay in the romance episode. She texted me afterwards and she's like, I don't remember what we talked about. I'm like, regardless of drinking or not, whenever we record something, it is in one, out the other. So the conversation that we had about the logbook is the reason that we ended up agreeing on PJ is the reason that he kept it was because it is a religious instrument to control the Steel Ministry and to control the Inquisitors. So it is used basically as a Bible of sorts that they treat as a holy text to affirm his place as the sliver of infinity and to like be this sort of genesis of the final empire. That said, because it's a fake book.
It doesn't reveal that it's not who he is. He's just slipping into that role of the author of that book.
And I think the other interesting part about that, too, is that it reveals some hatred for the Terracemen. Like, you can see where the Lord Ruler, quote, would then go and beat up and, like, kill the Terracemen because of his reaction to Rashek and not liking him throughout the logbook. So there's some, like, meta twist where it's like, this is the reason that the Terracemen are held down is because of their part and like negativity associated with them from the Ascension. You can see the Clennymites versus like there's all kinds of interesting parallels there that he's just playing off of.
That's true. You've thought about this a lot more than I have. I've always been like, the Lord Ruler kept it because it was like a nostalgia factor, you know? Like this is where I came from, whether or not I'm the writer, blah, blah, blah. Like this is an important part of my rise to power, so I'm just going to hang on to it. So,
yeah, no, I feel you though on the side of like, why would he hang on to it? And that's the only reason that it makes sense to me for him to hang on to it. Otherwise, I think it was a dumb move.
So there's the counterpoint of it's written in a dead language that the Steel Inquisitors probably don't know.
Also true. So it's just for him then.
Right. So like, why would it be a religious text, a Bible they all rely on when it's not written?
Why do we care about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
In the common language? I don't know.
Is it a trophy?
We all know all those languages now, whatever.
Well, right. But we didn't at the time.
Sure. Is it a trophy? No, I think that's good, PJ, right? Like, is it just a trophy? I think that's fair.
A trophy and like building an idol to the logbook, bro, or person, the not hero of ages. Yeah. Yep. I love the logbook as a narrative device, though. If we're talking about like the way that it pieces out information, it is, I think, brilliant to kind of use as a parallel story. PJ is on beer too.
Sometimes I worry, this won't give any spoilers to the future books, but in my opinion, sometimes I feel like Sanderson leans on the logbook as like a plot-driven device, which I totally understand. But at certain points, it has felt like nothing really happened. Logbook discovery, things happen. Nothing really happens. Logbook discovery, things happen, right? So that can get a little bit old after a few times, in my opinion.
Totally. Like, that is definitely a sort of recycled device that he's using throughout the story to push it all forward, right? Which I think also gets to kind of an interesting point where we can bring in the original conceit to this book and how it shifts over time, right? This book starts as a heist novel. This is totally intended to be like, fuck yeah, we're going to go rob the bank.
Fucking love heist novels.
Yeah.
If people haven't watched Logan Lucky, have you guys ever watched Logan Lucky?
Yeah, so we actually recorded a whole we guested on a podcast talking about Logan Lucky. We love Logan Lucky so much.
Check out High Key Obsessed podcast.
The one who opened my champagne. Yeah. Obsessed with that movie. He watches it like once a month. Very good.
I could do that conceivably if I had the time. Like it is that enjoyable of a movie. Yeah, I mean, and the opening conceit of this novel opens as a heist, and we lose the heist after like 400 pages, which is kind of in subsequent rereads super understandable, but it's also kind of disappointing because you want the heist, you want the robbery, but the heist the whole time has really been throwing over the Empire, I guess.
The heist is the friends we made along the way.
Yes, exactly. Journey, not destination. Yeah.
I felt cheated. I wanted the heist. No, I understand the progression in it, and I understand to a certain extent the need to be a little bit coy about the true motivations. But at the same time, I wonder what would have happened if he had been open about it the entire time. He probably wouldn't have gotten so much support, but I still feel like he could have gotten some, and that might have been even stronger. Being able to focus entirely on the actual task at hand, I think could have expedited the actual plan.
Yeah.
If you have been honest about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But who would he have gotten? Like Ham, I think, would have stayed. I don't think Breeze would have.
Yeah. Clubs. I mean, Doxson would have regardless. Like Doxson was in. I think
Doxson
Clubs probably would have.
just like the administrative assistant who actually makes everything happen. And like everyone is just dancing around Doxson. And if it wasn't for Doxson, there would not be a book.
It's really true. PJ and I didn't talk about this until like our second to last episode, or maybe it was even the last episode, where it's like PJ was like, I didn't appreciate Doxson for all the work he was doing.
Yeah, literally Doxson makes the entire book happen.
Yeah. Yeah. He is literally the like initiating force, and totally administrative assistant's a great way to put it. Does not get enough credit, is not paid well enough. Does all of the work.
Right. Absolutely.
Gets lunches, you know, like he does it all.
Like,
do they have sandwiches at Clubs' shop? I think they do. That's kind of ironic and funny,
that's
right?
Silly. Can I say a hot take quick?
Rough.
Off topic, Ham and Club. Ham and Club would have been better off as female characters. And I will stand by this.
I think that's true.
Yeah, just like, I don't know. I think Sanderson, I mean, I get it, whatever. But I think if he had made Ham and Club female characters, it could have added this like whole extra level of drama. If he'd made them lesbian female characters, which he would not do because Brandon Sanderson is a Mormon.
He does have gay characters in novels, but
right, but like
not in 2006, but
yes, exactly. Right. You all can't see my face. I was doing a lot with my face. Yeah, I just think Ham and Club should have been female characters. I think that would have made it more interesting. I think they would have been more dynamic, and I think they both lend themselves to it. That's all I'm going to say. So
do you think that would have changed anything, or changed anything for the better or worse in how Vin was brought up within the club? That's interesting.
I want to bring something up and like pare it back just to get to this point, right? The female characters that we have inside this book are fucking Vin, a vague reference to her mother, and we also have Kliss and Channel Ariel. Those are our three, and Vin. Those are our female characters. All of them are villains except for Vin. All of them are bad people except for Vin.
Brando, who hurt you?
Yeah, no joke. But to that point, that's why I totally agree. I think Ham and Club being good women would be a good thing as role models.
Absolutely.
That's a good question you asked though, PJ, because I wonder if Vin's reluctance to trust the group would have been eased faster if they had been female characters, or if they, oh my God, you guys, I'm tipsy.
You're fine. That's the point of the show.
Or if that would have created more resistance for her, right? Because I think there can be a thing sometimes where if you're a woman who's had to live in a hard situation, you like trust other women extra less. So I don't know. I don't know how that would have changed the plot for the better. I think it would have changed the narrative for the better as far as being a reader goes. I think it would have been a little bit less monotonous. I think it would have been a bit easier to keep track of who is who. And I think there's a lot that Brando could have done with those characters to just make them interesting. Because I think that's something I really have been appreciating about the Red Rising series, is that there's a lot of powerful and not powerful women in there who are just, for the most part, described the same way as the male characters. And he does that to an extent with Vin. But I think sometimes it comes off a little bit, she's not like other girls, right? Kind of gets that like manic pixie dream girl
Yeah.
but powerful.
So
vibe.
that's another question that I have, and it kind of relies on the assumption that Brandon Sanderson would write those characters as women in a way that was like realistic or respectful enough. And I don't necessarily know if that would happen.
What do you mean by realistic and respectful?
Important, real bulletproof side note. Vin originally was written as a male character and then changed in the second draft after like 20,000 words.
Interesting.
So started as a male character.
I didn't
Just
know that.
the fact that there are so few female characters in this story in general, I would be cautious at the idea that it would devolve into too much female stereotype.
No, I think that's
And that is based on nothing. Like, it's based on no context at all, but just the fact that there aren't many women in the story. I don't know how well it would be written. You know,
I don't think that's based on nothing. I think that's based on you reading this book, right? Because like Crossland said, the two other main female characters he has are pretty heavily based on stereotypes. They're both villains. And I didn't know that Vin was originally written as a boy. And so I think it's
just
pretty easy.
Like the first couple of chapters, and then he realized that he had to change it almost immediately. But
right, but when
you
you set up this character as a young boy and you're writing all male characters and you just kind of like change the name of the person, you keep writing it as a male character, but just saying she instead of he, right? That's very different than these intentionally female characters that Sanderson creates that kind of fall into these stereotypes. Because I do see, while I appreciate immensely the way that Sanderson does not like sexualize Vin in any respect. And in some ways his writing of her is almost like a cold shower. I also see the way that he describes just random women, even like, you know, tertiary characters, right? As like, oh, this woman was very ditzy, or this woman was covered in frills and therefore like you shouldn't give her any legitimacy, blah, 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 right? I wonder if...
I think that was meant to underline Shan, though, right? Like, that was meant to, like, make you think that she was nothing when, in fact, she was something else completely different, right?
Yeah, but even other characters... No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Even other characters... Yeah. I'm worried that I'm bumping into books 2 and 3. I can't remember. But
You're
I don't
not.
think this is a
So far,
spoiler.
you're good. Yeah.
There is a character who's, like, this ditzy gossip cutie pie who ends up being very, very potent and very important in the grand scheme of things.
right?
Was that? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
That was
It's
Kliss.
been a hot second. Yeah.
No,
exactly.
you're good.
So part of me wonders if he had written these characters as men and then just like changed the names and pronouns later of like him and Club. That could be interesting. But also I think they should both have lesbian arcs. But that's just me.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that would be actually a great fitting point for the two of them. And I think that Ham obviously you would change the name of Ham probably. Maybe not.
No,
Hammond
I think that's
would
great.
be a
Keep
sweet girl name, actually.
Right.
Yeah. I do want to say, like, my pushback on that wasn't to say that I disagree, because I completely agree with you. It goes under the assumption that it would be well written enough to like make sense. You know?
No, it's okay, PJ. It's because you hate women. I understand.
I mean, irrelevant.
No, I think that's a great question to bring up, though. Slander. Relevant to the conversation. No, I hadn't thought about that, though, because I kept being like, these should be female characters, but I hadn't really thought about, like, would he do them justice as female characters? I don't know. So maybe it's just my headcanon. And I just got to keep it there.
I think an adaptation, changing them to female characters would be awesome.
Yeah.
And this is such a minor gripe, right? This is a very minor gripe for me that's within the female spectrum that we're talking about right now with female characters and Brandon Sanderson. I've read a couple of extra books at this point, but when I was rereading Brandon Sanderson books, that's all I meant. But
I read books. I'm Crossland.
I read fucking books. Ha ha, he, it's me. Look at me. But if Brandon Sanderson, early Brandon Sanderson especially, he leans on women blushing so much as an emotional response to things. And PJ, now that I've said it, you're not going to be able to not notice it, because that is almost entirely what everyone does the moment that they're like confronted with something, because all of a sudden this confrontation is embarrassing and so they blush. And that's this weird assumption.
It's because he's Mormon. It's because he's Mormon. And that's like the sexiest it gets before marriage. It's the sexiest it gets, right? You're like, oh, hey, flirty comment, somebody blushes, and you're like, ooh, I'm going to be thinking about that for the week to come. And then, oh my God,
you're not wrong.
Not C-U-M, C-O-M-E.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess both.
Brandon Sanderson has a blush fetish.
But I'm glad I had to bring it up. I had to make sure it was heard and mentioned because I just can't get it out of my fucking head. I'm reading Elantris right now, and one of the main characters in that just is a nonstop blusher. Yeah,
there is like a little bit of a weird innocence trope. I mean, I also don't know if I want to read Brandon Sanderson writing a sex scene. Like, I think that would make me never want to have sex again. I'm glad that he stays in his lane and he knows his strengths. But
right, yeah, that's a fair point. That's actually maybe we should talk. We briefly mentioned in the romance episode a little bit about Brandon Sanderson being a cold shower, but I think that maybe it's time to talk about the relationship with Elend a little bit here, and Elend in general as a character. He gets 3 POV chapters. He's in a lot of Vin's perspective. He's the cute boy with the books who is kind of snotty and a punk and is like, well, blah blah blah. I'm gonna fight the authority. But yeah, what do we think about Elend?
Fight it from the inside. Okay, Ellen, how has that gone recently?
It's going so well.
I think
he doesn't even think of the Ska as intelligent at a certain point. I think PJ made a big deal of this. He's like, man,
we made a very big we had like a 2-hour conversation about this.
4 hours. Like, we talked about Elend and like the entire motivations of political society and like whether or not they should be blamed for their behavior and habits. And it spiraled to the point of we decided to stop talking about it in the episode. We finished the episode, which was a 5-hour recording for some fucking reason. We haven't done that in forever on our regular show. And then we talked about it for 3 hours after the fact, not recording.
That's cute.
About morals and ethics.
It's such an interesting question, though, and I'm not going to get into it because then we will be here for 3 more hours. But
I mean, I think that it still bears mentioning at the very least and plumbing your thoughts and ideas, and we'll just let your ideas sit there. But like Elend and his sort of political ideals, like what do you make of Elend A as a character, as the boy, the philosophy boy, and then his thoughts, ethics, morals?
Oh, he's the equivalent of like the boy you meet at the coffee shop or the niche bar who is a poet and is going to school for philosophy, whose parents are paying the entire way, but he really thinks he has the authority to like tell poor people how to live, you know? And I'm not saying this is somebody I like Elend. I think he's fine and he's compelling, but I think Sanderson does a good job of making him pretty obviously naive in this first book, but at the same time, like Vin is just so excited to like meet a member of the nobility who has the same opinions as her that she's like, yes, this is it. But to me, Elend is the equivalent of somebody with a coexist bumper sticker who donates to a couple local organizations a couple times a year and really thinks they're doing something while they live in their like $4 million mansion and refuses to, look homeless people in the eye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's really fair. I think the view on ska in general is at least partially, if not mostly, propaganda.
Sure.
And the fact that like it's a big reveal to him that they're intelligent beings.
Right.
Like I don't think that's well known amongst the nobility in general. Like they see them as unintelligent humanoids as opposed to equal humans. That doesn't make it right, clearly, but
no, but I think like Sanderson does a good job in the book of making it clear that that's not right. Like he not pokes fun at, but I don't know, you feel it as you're reading through it because Vin is ska and these, excuse me, I'm burping from my fancy champagne. These other people are ska, and so you're reading it and he's like, oh, I didn't know ska could be intelligent. And you're like, shut the fuck up, Elend. So I don't think I don't think Sanderson's writing this book thinking anyone halfway through is going to be like, maybe the ska are intelligent. We're on Vin's side. We're on Kelsier's side from the beginning. So we all think Ellen's kind of a dipshit when he makes that realization. We're like, yeah, no shit, buddy. Anyway.
No, I mean, I think that's a great way of putting it. Is like it is a no shit buddy moment. Like fucking come on.
I mean, him and Vin's relationship reminds me of Rory and Dean from Gilmore Girls. If anyone's a Gilmore Girls fan out there, right? Like as I'm preparing my bar application, I just started having Gilmore Girls on in the background, and I started over at the beginning, and like that's where this is coming from, right? Like Dean is like the first boy that's ever been like, oh, you read books during gym class. You're not like other girls. Like, oh, I know the references you make. And Rory's like, that's the hottest thing I've ever heard. We should get married immediately, even though we're both 16. And I feel like that's a little bit of what's happening here, why I still sometimes struggle with Vin and Ellen's relationship, because it's a little like Vin's at these parties and she's uncomfortable in her dresses, but oh, there's this boy there who likes books and he also hates the formality and the frivolity. That means we have everything in common. Let's make out, but Brando's not going to write about it because he's Mormon. So like,
right.
I don't know. Sometimes their relationship feels a little forced to me.
Don't they kiss at the end of the book? Am I crazy? No, they hug. They hug at the end of the book.
Do they just hug?
I'm pretty sure that's all
I
it
mean,
is.
they can kiss, and that's fine.
Grabbing her in a firm embrace, Vin closed her eyes, simply feeling the warmth of being held, and then realized that that's all she ever wanted. Yeah, it's a hug. Anyway.
I mean, but there is the fact that she's 16 and he's 22?
That's
20?
right. Oh
22?
my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think he's 21 or 22, yeah.
She's a baby. She's a baby.
Well, yeah, and there's that preoccupation of like, what's the societal rules like, and I think that was something that I don't know. I don't need to get into it myself.
But it's real, right? And like,
yeah.
Vin's age is a subject of not controversy about her age, but like about where you place these books in a genre. Because some people would say that it's like young adult just because Vin is a teenager. Other people would place it in adult fantasy because she eventually becomes an adult through the passage of time. And some people would say it's young adult because there's nothing like sexy about it, which I think is a dumb way to gauge whether something is young adult or adult fiction. But there's people out there who argue that Mistborn is a young adult series just because it's not explicit.
When it launched, it was not a young adult series. It was an adult fantasy series because of the violence. That was kind of the thing. But then over time, it's actually changed into being considered a young adult series, which I think I disagree with, to your point. But at the same time, you can see that it's also accessible for a younger crowd looking to get into higher fantasy.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it's kind of it's a weird. It's like a bridge. I think of it as a bridge between the two, kind of. But to your point, there's nothing sexy in it. So like, it's not. You know, it doesn't firmly place itself in adult fantasy necessarily. I'm
going to be that person for a second on the podcast who says, like, traditionally, books written by women will get tossed into young adult, and then eventually someone will say, no, I think this is adult fiction. Whereas books written by men will get tossed into adult fiction, and then someone will be like, no, I think this is young adult fiction. So that's interesting.
It's pretty true.
But I say that with all the love for Brando in my heart. Brando, if you're listening, thanks for being good at what you do. That's it.
It's so funny. So like the fans call him Brando Sando, right?
Brando Sando.
We accidentally landed on Branderson. So we've been calling him Mr. Branderson the whole time as like a Matrix joke.
Perfect.
Mr. Branderson.
Did that not come from external? Like,
no, that was us, buddy. We fucked up. Well, we did it on accident during one of our prologues. Like it happened and we just stuck with it. So Brando Sando is the outer view.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
With good reason.
Yeah. I'm not well read enough to know the differences. I'm not well enough. I'm not well read enough to understand the differences between like adult fiction and young adult fiction. I don't know where to make that delineation. I have no idea. Like, how would you define it?
Do I have a podcast for you?
It's only 3 hours and 50 minutes long, in which we clearly draw those lines.
Okay.
That's generous. I think one of the things we talked about on that episode is that it's content and themes, right? And so some people, especially in the United States, right, we're like, oh, there's sexual themes, that makes it adult fiction. But there's also things like violence. And we're very comfortable saying something that's violent is young adult fiction, which I don't agree with. I think at a certain level, violence becomes adult fiction. I think Hunger Games sits in the young adult fiction because it is violent, but it's not like graphic, right?
PJ hasn't seen or read or doesn't know shit about Hunger Games. PJ is so sheltered with books. That's why we're doing the show, for the record. Like,
that's
PJ
why this podcast exists. Oh my god,
doesn't even fucking know Hunger Games. Yeah.
No, Hunger Games is awesome. I love Hunger Games, and it's like it's not explicit to the level where I would ever put it in adult fiction. I think Mistborn is absolutely explicit enough to put it in adult fiction. I think it is accessible, especially for American teenagers who are used to just like violence in their media.
I read The Stand at 12. So like,
right. And you're like, that's fine.
And it feels like to me, Mistborn feels like to me the reason why there's so little sexual content in it is the same reason why there's so little drug or alcohol use content in it. And in that,
there's a lot of alcohol, actually. Good
because
point.
Brando's
yeah, because he's not exposed to it so much. It's not necessarily a part of his everyday life.
right.
So like alcohol exists in the book, but it's not like expounded upon very often.
Yeah, it's fair. But they do drink a lot. Like every time they're hanging out in any of the places, they're drinking. Like anytime.
Yeah,
the
but
crew's all
it's a
together,
passing comment that they. Yeah, but
No, that's real. Yeah.
there's never any drunk conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just passing comments that they were drinking.
And he
There's
never-
one specific moment with Vin where she does get drunk and breaks and like says something that she shouldn't have said at the time, but she only said it because she was drunk. She only pushed herself because she was intoxicated.
Which point?
But that's it happens in like the first 150 pages. It is one of the first times when she's like addressing the crew and she's being brought in to a part of the plan, and she's like, that doesn't seem like we're doing the right thing there. And Kelsier's like, oh yeah, so we should be planning this differently. We'll make sure that you are the one that actually does the noble infiltration. It's right around that section.
Well,
But
he never talks
I agree
about
with you otherwise.
about like how it makes people feel, right? So maybe
Yeah,
like little
right.
Brando's writing from his pretty ignorant view on drinking. Sheltered, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean ignorant to sound like bad.
I know.
But, right,
It wasn't
he
a bad
know,
thing.
He doesn't know,
Right.
you know? And so he's like, oh, they were drinking whiskey. And then like never is like, you know, the whiskey like permeated her veins and like made a warm feeling from like her throat to her tummy, blah, blah, blah. Like that some authors do when people start getting drunk.
Tummy.
Tummy is a required term, I think.
Intercore. That's for the romance episode. But you know, I think that's a good point, PJ. He just kind of mentions it as like a passing. Oh, they had some whiskey or whatever.
Breeze called for wine.
This called for wine, yeah. Because Brandon's lived his whole life being like, oh, happy occasion, this calls for wine. And he's like sitting here texting his wife asking if he can have a Red Bull. So,
Which he can't.
No, but that's okay. One time I was at the bar. I was at like a party bar with my friend who used to be Mormon, and then his friend from BYU who came in who is still Mormon, and this friend like called his wife at the bar and asked her if he could have a Red Bull. And she said yes, and it was so sweet, and he had such a good time. He stood on the table and drank a Red Bull. It was really cute.
Amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sorry if there's any Mormon listeners out there. You're awesome. You're also beautiful.
Right, yeah.
Because you don't do anything terrible to your bodies like us heathens
It's
do.
true. You generally are, yeah.
Let me know if you want me to join any of your planets moving forward. I'm happy to be wife number 4.
So, all right, we've got a couple of things left to talk about from where we left off, but I definitely want to give us a moment to talk about the whole crew at large. I think that's a good place to jump back in here. What do we think about the crew? I mean, we've already got the hot take that it's not even a hot take. It's actually a proper take. I think that Hammond Clubs should be women, which I agree with. But what else do we think about the characters as they're written and kind of their place inside of the story as individual mistings? Except for Doxson, because fuck Doxson, I guess.
No, because Doxson holds everybody together. He's the glue. His power is friendship and extreme skill at Microsoft Office.
He is a product manager or project manager. Absolutely.
PJ, you go first.
I think
as Lindsay kills the bottle of champagne.
I think it's what I was looking forward to the entire time, and I thought would have been more obvious to Kelsier from the beginning was a very cohesive group of mentors for Vin for each individual medal. And it was weird to me that Kelsier didn't think of that to begin with.
Sure.
And maybe it's because of his uprising as a Mistborn, having a single tutor teaching him everything, but I don't know. I think it just makes sense both narratively and just logically that you would divide up the task of teaching Vin all the different aspects. Like we get that with Darrow right away in Red Rising of these different colors are teaching him different things about being a gold, you know? So I don't know. I think it worked really, really well. The only weird thing was that Kelsier didn't see it as a viable option just from the jump.
See what is a viable option?
Having Vin be tutored by each individual misting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah, to me, the like specifically the tutoring by each individual misting part of this book, but the whole book in general, but specifically this part felt just like very anime glow up sequence to me. Like, I feel like if there was a prose version of like an anime series, it would be Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, because it's so like it's like straight into the point, and just like
interesting.
She like travels through all these little chapters of, you know, what she's learning in the allomatic metals that she's learning how to conquer, and it feels very prescribed.
Avatar?
Very like prescribed in a compelling and cute way, I thought. Yeah.
I think I agree with that take on the whole, as reading the crew is like kind of that prescribed lesson by lesson to individual by individual, and imparting, you know, the different allomantic knowledge. And I like that. PJ had an early prediction that like that was going to happen, and that absolutely did happen. Not necessarily in the complete context that he guessed, but pretty close. And I think that it's fun, but it also kind of treats the characters as more of tools of the plot as opposed to actual characterized people, you know, instead of the world. Like it's not the lessons don't come off to me as perfectly natural, but they do still fit the function of the story very well. And the characters themselves also shine, kind of, but not. Brandon is so frustrating because it's like so close to like an incredible story, but it's always a great story. Like, it's so close to incredible, but it just always like settles for great. It's my issue, but
that's spicy.
That's my spicy take. That's my hot take. But
I think my hot take is that I like Spook and Vin more than I like Vin and Elend. So that's my hot take.
That's it. Okay, elaborate.
I can't too much for this book.
Oh, sure.
But I will say that Spook is 100% the kid who watches a lot of Naruto and like ninja runs to recess every day. So
yeah, that's good.
I love that for Vin. She needs that in her life.
Yep.
I'll elaborate more if you invite me back.
Yeah.
And you pay me.
We like doing wrap ups when we're done as bonuses. So when we're done with it, you can come back and be like, "Fuck you."
Perfect.
I can't believe you didn't think of this.
A couple things to address. We get the sort of breakup of responsibilities for teaching Vin how to be a Mistborn across the crew, but that also extends into how to lead a country and completely ignores all of their misting capabilities, but still sort of finds delineations amongst themselves for what they're good at, and leading by committee, basically.
Fair.
So I thought that was a cool dichotomy to a certain extent. Regarding Vin and Spook, I think you're right. I think it feels more rooted in actual feelings and actual emotions, and like understanding of who each other actually are, you know? Whereas Elend and Vin are they don't know hardly anything about each other. It's so shallow. The fact that she isn't a normal noble person.
I think they both love the idea of the other person. And that's why it feels so shallow, right? Because they both like really think that they understand this person, that the other person understands them deeply, but they're both just obsessed with the idea. Like Elend is obsessed with the idea of a noble girl who's
Valette,
not like other girls.
right?
A Valette, yeah. And Vin is obsessed with the idea of a noble man who's not like other noblemen.
Right. But they aren't truly honest to each other until that final confrontation right before Vin goes in to fight the Lord Ruler, in which it's actually Vin and Elend for the first time in this book. So it's like, it's just idealized as opposed to manifesting reality.
And that whole interaction feels so powered by the force of love to a certain extent, and it doesn't feel earned.
Force of love, that's for sure.
I mean, it also feels very, right, you brought this up earlier, PJ, right? They're teenagers. It feels very teenager-y, right?
One of them is.
One of them is a 20-year-old.
Good point. Right, like when I was 16, you know, I was more in love with the idea of the person than I was with the actual person. And I think that says less about Vin than it maybe does about Elend for letting it happen. But here we are. Also, you know, gotta remind you all, Brando's a Mormon, so they were going to get married at 21 no matter what. So
Yeah, that's true. I had a hard time trusting Elend the entire story. So there's that. I
tell us
absolutely
more.
thought there was
my God.
something.
Yeah.
What else do you want to know? I genuinely thought that he was on to Vin the entire time and was using his charm as a way of like letting her guard down and like catching the crew. It just felt too perfect. How open he was about like not fitting into noble society and like the way that he saw the ska in general. Like it was just so much like blunt force information that he dropped in their first meeting.
Blunt force romance. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's a term now forever.
So
No, it feels right.
just felt,
that feels real.
yeah.
I felt the same. I felt similar. It felt a little bit like, oh, we have this story and now we have the romance arc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do we feel about the balls in general?
The balls that they attended?
Yeah, the ball. Yeah, right. The like that scene dressing for the whole story.
I thought it was convenient. I don't know. I felt like it was a convenient plot device to get Vin into noble society. I think maybe he could have been a bit more creative, but
Yeah. They didn't seem super exciting, but then I have to remind myself constantly that they happened every night.
that's right.
That's fair.
Like
yeah.
it was just there every
It's like going
night
out to the bar.
for the most part.
That's
Like I'm
true.
sure
They
there
don't
were
have
some nights that
jobs.
it didn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the How I Met Your Mother folks, like showing up at the end of the night at the bar versus
Yeah.
like the balls here.
They
Yeah.
just like hang all day. Right. They don't have jobs. They just hang all day. And then they're like, ooh, what cute outfit am I going to wear to the ball tonight? Who's hosting? They just like rotate.
Yeah.
Basically, I think that's really it. So we talked about a lot of the crew, but I want to make sure that we give a little bit of focus on Sazed and Farakemi in general. We don't have a whole lot of reveals. This is good for you, Lindsay, just as context, but we don't have a whole lot of reveals of Farakemi in this novel outside of a handful of things and exactly how it works, but it's interesting. And Sazed is really this complex character that's kind of fed into the middle of this, who starts as a steward, as this proper member teaching Vin all of these different notes, but then also brings in the complexity of like religion into the conversation and the ideas of belief and faith that I think really shape Vin in a positive way. I just kind of want reveals on Sazed. Thoughts on Sazed?
I love Sazed.
I love Sazed.
Yeah.
He's
I
great.
also had a hard time trusting him.
Ooh,
PJ
tell us
doesn't
more.
fucking trust anyone.
Do you get the theme
I love
here?
that about PJ. I get it. No, PJ, I'm there with you.
Like, yeah. He's great. He's a great character. And knowing what I know now, I don't think I'd mistrust him as much as I did in the beginning, but I was cautious about how much information he knew and how conveniently he was there to save Vin from Creedic Shaw initially. That was the biggest point to me, was how did he know and how was he there so perfectly in time? And
Oh yeah,
know.
you've got big skepticism energy on that.
Yep, there's that. Farakemi in general. Do we know of anyone? Has it been mentioned that any Farakemists only have access to a single medal, or do they all have access to all of the medals?
So far, they're treated like Mistborn.
Right.
So it appears as though they can do all of the things.
Right. And that makes me like wonder about bloodlines. Is it just because it was a very pure bloodline amongst the terracemen and they didn't like, I don't know.
What's mentioned in the book, right? That the Lord Ruler bred the terracemen in a very specific way for a very specific reason. And so I think that can be overlapped with this question about bloodline as to why, where, how, as far as Farakemi goes.
That's interesting. I had never thought about it that way, where like he actually purified the bloodline to make them all Farakemists.
And we know that Vin is one of the points about Vin being such a powerful Mistborn was she must be from a very pure bloodline. So the power level of Mistborn and Mistings in general degrades over the purity of the bloodline. So there's that.
So there's
And
an
does that-
interesting.
Is that parallel with Farakemi?
Wow. I just have to qualify real quick with what Lindsay said on the Farakemi side. That's a crazy eugenics program. It's a crazy eugenics program if we start to think about it that way, because it's like he purified the bloodline to make them all. Oh my God. Shit. Anyway, all right. I'm mind blown a little bit.
Aha. That's why you pay me the big bucks.
Yeah. Sorry, PJ, you were saying, though, that there's obviously the dilution of blood within Mistborns, not within Feruchemy, and that there could be similar experiences. Was that what you're trying to get to? My mind was exploding. I'm sorry.
We know there's breeding programs like you were just talking about, and we don't know of any examples of non-super concentrated terracemen that still exhibit Feruchemist like powers, unless maybe Vin's mom, which is my working theory right now, and Vin in general. So
that Vin's mom was a Feruchemist? Is that your theory?
Yeah, that's the theory. That's my theory because of a few different things, one of which is the fact that she very explicitly handed down an earring to Vin. Another point that I made and Cross kind of debunked a little bit because of internal versus external allomancy, but the fact that she was able to persuade the assassins from killing her, and maybe that's an equivalent to soothing potentially on the Feruchemist side.
Right,
but that
wouldn't she just be able to access that from her Mistborn?
She would have just been soothing because she's an allomancer, not because she's a Feruchemist.
Right. But
I like where your head's at, though.
I think Vin needs to be both Feruchemist and Mistborn in order to rival the power of the Lord Ruler. That's where that...
This is where we just nod and we move on from your question because we can't...
I know.
So,
do you feel like we have any suggestions that Vin could have feruchemical powers?
Yes. We have the fact that she is able to see Sazed's metal deposit, stored power, but isn't able to access it. And Sazed says that's how it feels when a Feruchemist tries to use another Feruchemist's metal.
Sure. That makes sense.
So we have that, which I don't know. Working theory.
You'll find out.
Working theory. I don't know.
Read and find out, as they say.
Yeah, but my reading is entirely controlled by Crossland.
It's true. PJ can't read unless I tell him to. So actually, after we're done with this, PJ can finally start the Well of Ascension. It's been 2 weeks.
Correct.
That he's been unable to read. So anyway, I do want to talk a little bit about the sort of quintessential end of Brandon Sanderson stories. PJ, this is your first one, only one, but colloquially from fans, they're known as the Sanderlanche, where kind of everything happens all at once, and the climax is treated like this giant rolling ball that cannot be stopped by any means. We actually did stop it, though, because we split the Sanderlanche into 2 episodes.
So
dividing
I have
up
to
the
say,
moment of Kelsier's death into the Lord Ruler's death. But what thoughts?
First of all, Sanderlanche. In my head, every time it's Sanderland Ranch. I don't know why.
Welcome to Sanderland Ranch.
Oh no!
Exactly. That's every time. That's what I hear. I don't know why.
That's so funny.
But it is the Sanderland Ranch for some reason. I think this is a point that we've talked about a little bit with the Red Rising series as well. My experience with this book is way different than most people's because we read it at such a slow pace. Reading it at...
You say so slow, dude, but you're part of the reason we read it so slow.
But also
it's paced out, yes. We read
it's
it at a pace.
It's paced out,
yeah.
And we can only record once a week. So I'm only reading 60 pages in a week, and then I'm taking a week off before recording it. So it's a very methodical, deep dive way of reading this book, and in that I read each section 3 times. So before moving on to the next part, it doesn't feel so fluid. So that like you said, the Sanderland Ranch got split in 2, and it felt divorced from each other. Those deaths felt entirely divorced from each other in my head, even though they're 20 pages apart.
Sure.
It just felt very separate. And I think it's entirely a function of the way that we read and record the book.
That's fair. And I did intentionally split it because I wanted you to go down the road of, oh, the Lord Ruler isn't going to die in this book. And that's literally where your brain went because it made sense, which was great. I entirely manipulated you intentionally into believing that, which was hilarious and hysterical, I think, for everyone who listened. But I think it's also important because it hones in on like what was central there, which is Kelsier's sacrifice first, and then moving into the second part, which is the death of the Lord Ruler and Vin's kind of supremacy in her own right of like, how did this actually happen? Yeah. So, Lindsay, not having that perspective, though, I think it's important to ask, like, what do you think of the Sanderlanche approach to climaxes?
I mean, I don't think he's alone in it, right? Like,
no,
I would say all of the Harry Potter books have the same fucking thing, where it's just like exposition for 300 pages and then something actually happens. I think it's a tried and true writing style. I wish the Sanderlanche happened a bit sooner. I think he condenses it like under 100 pages. And so his writing goes from this really like, his writing goes from this really like beautiful, long drawn out world building and character building and relationship building. And then all of a sudden stuff happens and it almost feels like you like turn the page onto a new book, right? Mm-hmm. I wish he was more competent at like blending the lines there or just drawing out the climax a little bit more. But I mean, it's a trope for a reason. And when you read a Brandon Sanderson book, you know what you're getting into. So I can't really complain.
I totally understand that. I think he borrowed it in part from Robert Jordan, of whom he finished The Wheel of Time when Robert Jordan passed away. And so I think that's kind of why, because he's clearly kind of, aping's the wrong word. He is very clearly borrowing from, inspired by that sort of writing style. And so I think that's where it comes from in large part. And I think that he was never assuaged from it and became, because of a combination of characters, world building, his very simple language. Like he is nowhere near the poeticism of Hemingway and simplicity, but he is very simple in the way that he constructs sentences and paragraphs to the point of where it's so clear, like pungently clear what he's trying to get across with whatever he's saying.
Sure.
All the time. And there's a very little flowery prose compared to, especially going from like Red Rising to this, right? We're talking like plain English in Mistborn. We're talking crazy poetic wisticisms in Red Rising and each other place. But yeah.
Yeah. I think especially when you get into fight scenes, I really appreciated how straightforward and plain the fight scenes were. Like it read like screenwriting choreography almost. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I really appreciated that style. I think I likened it to like a guitar solo.
You did.
The first time we saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I can empathize with that. Yeah.
We're getting narrative and then suddenly it's 2 or 3 pages of just
violence.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But without anything flowery, it's just step-by-step motions of this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened.
But it's very clear. I don't know. I felt when I was reading it that, in agreement with you, PJ, that like I could very clearly picture what was happening in this fight scene. And I don't think that's true of all fight scenes I've read. Even in the Red Rising series, I kind of zone out sometimes for a few pages and I'm like reading, I'm like, okay, we're all hitting each other. It's fine, right? But I think in Mistborn, one of Sanderson's talents is being able to describe these fight scenes in a clear and compelling way that makes it very obvious what's happening and who's where and what they're thinking. And that's engaging and that's fun to read.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I think I'd push back a little bit and say we don't necessarily know what they're thinking for the most part. We just know what they're doing.
Sure.
There are some situations where we get the inner monologue bleeding into it, but for the most part, it's just physical actions. Especially earlier on with Kelsier and his confrontations, it's just motions.
That's true.
Whereas if we talk about razor battles in the Red Rising series, they're like a couple moves each, but they'll take up several pages because you're talking about the intentions and emotions and thoughts and like very detailed understandings of the fighting styles and all this context to the fighting as opposed to the actual fighting. Right. Even though like that's very satisfying to read also.
It's just different. Fundamental.
but it's just different. And if you were to condense it, and if you were to, we talk a lot about screen adaptations and like how would you do this? In Red Rising, those fight scenes would last a couple seconds based on if you were staying true to the story, or it becomes way more epic of a battle than it is in the book.
Right. I think
because it has to be in order to get the weight of it. Proper.
Right. I think the only way you could accommodate it in like Red Rising in a film or TV adaptation would be to have this like almost very long drawn out anime style.
It would be anime style.
Like it'd be Dragon Ball Z entire episode of lead up.
You're having this battle or this fight that in reality lasts like,
maybe
he's
gonna do this
3 minutes, but it's 30 minutes of the movie because it's slow motion, sword movement, razor movement, and then you're hearing their whole internal monologue the whole time, which truly I do not love in anime. So
no, I don't.
I'm fine with just watching some beautiful choreography.
Right. Just give me the choreography.
Yes.
I can try to read people's facial expressions and try to extract some of that information. That's where like adaptation can really shine in those various ways. And I think to the kind of core point here, I think that Mistborn is written to be adapted. Like this is so clearly an easy why the fuck hasn't it happened movie. Like this is the fucking like a crazy great story that you could very easily tell on screen. And I think finally they're starting to make progress on that. He sold the rights and like reverted the rights a couple of times because they were going to change shit that he didn't like. And yeah, I think they're finally making progress on that. But
awesome.
Oh man.
Do we have like any, well, this is irrelevant to the Mistborn wrap up, but do we have any like inklings of casting? I know that can be a thing.
No, but that's a curious question. Like, who do you think where would you cast who? We discussed a little bit about Kelsier. We didn't cast other people, but we did discuss Kelsier casting with like what we thought would match, which was interesting. Oh. So like maybe let's do that as kind of a lightning round. So we've got the big ones, Vin, Kelsier, Sazed, Lord Ruler. Yeah? Or other ideas. If you have other like random throw-ins, throw them in.
I'm bad at actors, I have to think.
Okay. So, PJ, let's go with your Kelsier take, because I think it's interesting, and I think it'll jog the conversation in an interesting direction.
Caleb McLaughlin, right? I think that's his name.
That's
so. Have you seen Concrete Cowboy?
I have not.
Okay, so
he's Idris Elba's nephew.
Yeah, Idris Elba's nephew in that movie.
I think he might be.
He might be a little bit too young. It's a movie. Oh no, he's not. He's not his nephew in real life.
I thought it was a real life. I thought there was a real life connection. My bad.
Maybe there is. I'm not aware of that though.
I think I stated something like that on the show, and I'm so wrong. That is hysterical. Okay. All right.
But we had conversations about this with our Patreon Discord server that made us realize that Kelsier's older than we both saw him. Yeah. I saw him as like around 30, maybe 35 at most. Mm-hmm. But
turns out he's like 35, 40.
What?
Yeah, more in the 40-ish range.
Yeah. He's 35 to 45.
Huh. He's so spry.
Yeah, right. That's my issue. Like there's a weird problem with age and what he does, but that's the Mistborn nature of things.
I feel like Kelsier in my head, because like he has like lighter hair. Sanderson describes him as having this like sandy hair, but I kept wanting to give him dark hair for whatever reason. That's probably my own thing I need to work through. But I feel like he would be whatever the guy's name is that plays Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's great.
What is his name?
Yeah.
I could see that.
It's like Nikolai.
Yeah, Nikolaj
Coster-Waldau.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
That's how I kind of see him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't think we had any contextual.
That's actually a great casting. Shit.
That could be pretty good.
He would make a killer Kelsier. Man, I can't.
He is black in my head. I don't know why.
Cool.
For whatever reason, from the beginning, that's what I thought.
Who would you cast him as?
So he said Caleb McLaughlin, which is the
Caleb McLaughlin,
right?
Yeah, I think he's too young.
Delete the part where I wasn't listening. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. That was the whole point. We'll clean it up. Don't worry about
with the actual age range, a younger Idris Elba could do it.
Sure.
But
Caleb would make a killer spook.
That could do it.
I'm staring at him and I'm thinking spook, but
I looked up Mistborn fan cast, and there's a lot of people who want Timothée Chalamet to be Spook, and I want to put it on the record. I am entirely against this. That should not happen.
Yeah, right. Yep. Who's Timothée Chalamet was recently? Roke.
Spider-Man.
Timothy, like our group, our Patreon group, Discord group, put in his name for Roke in Red Rising. He'd play a good Roke, like
fine,
a good sad poet, you know?
Yeah,
he could do that well. Yeah,
I think there's better people. I think that would be if you wanted to like really get the namesake in there.
Sure. We can move away from Timothée Chalamet. So we said Kelsier. We've got Nicolas Coster-Waldau, who I think is incredible. I'm gonna just throw my weight behind that. I originally said give me early 2000s Brad Pitt, and like that's my like head canon. I don't know why I can't get past it, but like Fight Club Brad Pitt, that's just brain. So we've got Vin then.
And not to stay like too in the Game of Thrones realm, but the guy who plays the bird, what's his name?
The bird.
The birdie guy.
The birdie guy? Are you talking about the old man who is secretly a...
Yes. And I don't want to just like make him play one eunuch and then the next Varys. But he's not like...
Oh God, he would be a great Sazed. I hate that, but I love it.
Except for Sazed is supposed to be like a bit more tan than him. And so like I want...
Yeah.
I met this man at a con once who was cosplaying as Varys, but he was not a white person, and I want him to play Sazed. So we have to find him. I don't know what his name is. We have to find him.
We must find this man. That's good.
Yeah.
So for Sazed, I see him as very like accentuated and long. Like
interesting.
Javier Botet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
It's essentially Marfan syndrome.
Sure.
Is what I imagine Sazed being. Just very, very long and like long fingers, accentuated like cheekbones and jaw.
I thought you were going Javier Bardem because that's who I like.
No.
Nope.
Botet. Botet.
I think that's more true to the narrative, whereas I always pictured Sazed as like tall, but also a little chubby. But I think the way that you're explaining it makes more sense.
Okay.
That's a good cast.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, for me, for Sazed, for whatever reason, I've just had it in my head that Javier Bardem, like he's got that interesting like speaking timbre too that I think would match with Sazed. He might be a little too old, but my image of Javier Bardem matches with my image of Sazed being the long stare and the thoughtful contemplation.
Yeah, could see that.
But I might be the oddity there. And I think he's not fully, he's tan. And so I feel like the skin color fits right. And I feel like I feel like that fits an idea.
Like Lance Reddick.
Ooh,
I think that could be a
Lance Reddick's good.
Sazed option, but he's too like cut for me. I don't know, but I feel like the producers might like it.
Oh, Lance Reddick would be great. He did... God, was he? I think he was in American Gods.
Yes, I was about to say that.
He played a character in American Gods, yeah. Yeah, and he did incredibly in that. Yeah, Lance Reddick's great. That's a great cast. Obviously, he's in a lot of other things, including The Wire, which is the best TV show ever. It doesn't matter, but...
It doesn't matter. I just found a fan cast, though, where Eden is cast by Michael Cera. And I just want to... I want to introduce Michael Cera into the Mistborn universe. I don't care what role he has, but Michael Cera needs to be in it.
Oh God, give him Demu.
That would be so good. I could also, I could see him as a very specific, important character to come that we can't mention right now.
I think I know who you're talking about.
I see Eden as Martin Freeman.
Ooh, that works. Yeah.
I don't know.
I want a little bit more like young foolhardiness though than Martin Freeman, if that makes sense. Like I want, which is where Michael Cera, I think, like peak.
Yeah, I can see that.
Or Jesse Eisenberg, like.
Okay, someone here also cast Shan as Sophie Turner, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. I feel like Shan has to be like Megan Fox.
That's the common fan casting. Yeah, really? Megan Fox would work. Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like Shan has to be this. Did they say that she has like red hair? I don't remember that. Did Anderson write that?
I don't think so.
Because to me, Shan was very like, had a very contrasted appearance, like pale skin, dark, beautiful Hollywood curls, like Viper vibes. I don't know. That was me.
Yeah, I definitely get the perspective of like a Viper, right? So I feel like Megan Fox is more apt than my opinion there. But I will say, if you haven't seen Sophie Turner in X-Men, in the newer X-Men movies, I think that her as Jean Grey, Phoenix, I think that she plays kind of a more viperish character in that. So I think she could do it, but I would agree with you. I would go with someone closer to those kind of darker features of Megan Fox, the sharper features.
No, I've seen that. I think Shan needs to be... Sophie Turner comes off as a bit too, like, actually powerful, where Shan, to me, came off as, like, socially powerful.
Dark auburn hair. Dark auburn is the way it's described.
Yeah, Shane came off to me as somebody who could socially ruin you, but like probably couldn't beat you in a fight. And that's why it's so surprising when we find out that's not the case. And I feel like Sophie Turner, maybe this is my like Game of Thrones bias with her. She like Sophie Turner on her face is too powerful. It has to be more sneaky powerful.
Got it. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I track that.
Thanks.
Okay. What about the Lord Ruler? Rashek.
God, I don't know.
For me, it's Adam Driver.
Adam Driver's great.
Just forever. It has to be Adam Driver.
For me, it's so Adam Driver. When PJ said that, I was like, "That's excellent." I would take Fassbender personally, Michael Fassbender, as my big bad. I think it's also because I'm thinking Magneto Daddy in my head the whole time, but you know,
he's supposed to look like perpetually in his 20s, right?
Yeah, and I think Michael Fassbender looks like he's perpetually in his 30s, but sure.
No. You're right. I'm just when I'm thinking of people, I'm trying to
imagine someone young. Tom Cruise at that point, right?
It's hard.
Lord Ruler's tough, but I feel like, especially given the portrayal of Magneto, I just feel like you could get some fucking waves.
Do you know who could look good? What is his name? Oh my god, what is his name? Oh, that's not how you spell that. I could see. What is his name? Give me his name. God damn it.
What movie? Do you have a movie?
Roger Jean Page, who's like the protagonist in Bridgerton, or the love interest in Bridgerton. Yep. He just has
he can
that
totally do it.
Kind of like snatched, snaky male appearance, and I think he could have the very like haughty Haughty way, right? Like presence of the Lord Ruler. And I think he could do that really well.
I love Roger Jean Page. I think he makes a ton of sense. I think that also he fits into that age range that we're talking about with the Lord Ruler too. So.
Right, where you're like PJ, younger, but you look a little older than you are. Yeah,
totally. PJ, you're totally Adam Driver. Menace, give me the long hair Adam Driver again.
I think Adam Driver's a great call. Though.
Yeah. I like all of them. I would take any of them, to be honest. They're all great casts. Okay, one final full. Oh.
So one.
Did we talk Vin? Did we fucking talk Vin?
We haven't talked Vin, but. I don't know if I want him as Ham or Breeze, but what's his name? Stephen Graham, who played Tommy in Snatch.
Oh yeah, he'd make a good.
Oh sure.
Look at him now. I think he'd play either of them really, really well.
You said which characters?
Either Ham or Breeze.
Ooh.
And I
think
entirely, if we're going to adapt it, both of them should be women. I think you're absolutely right, but if we're going...
PJ the feminist. No, but I agree with you. I think he'd be a better Breeze. I think I picture Ham a bit more cut.
So for me, Ham is Don Lee, which I highly recommend looking up just so that you can get the visual image. But he played Gilgamesh in the recent Eternals. He is perfect. He is Ham as written to me. Like... When I watch Eternals, it's like, oh, that's Ham on screen. Sweet.
Yeah, look at his little arms.
Perfect. And he's got the same kind of, he's got that same kind of like friendly vibe that I really resonated with. And I was like, that's Ham in my head forever.
He happens to be big and muscular because of the way he is, not because he like works really hard at it.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So for me, Don Lee was Ham.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Breeze is interesting. Breeze could have a wide range of options. I'm also
avoiding answering for Vin because I have no idea how to approach it. Do I look for a child actor? Because she's like young and also small for like she is described as almost childlike for most of it, but also emotionally she feels older and like I'd want to look for like an adult
who can
actor.
Play younger. Yeah, I think if you were like to be true to the series, you would pull a child and have them grow up with the series. I feel like that would feel most authentic. If we had to do it the Hollywood way and pick like a 30-year-old to play a 14-year-old, I would think of like Isabella Monet You could be really lazy and go with Maisie Williams, who perpetually looks 14, right? Yeah.
I see Anna Taylor-Joy. I see Queen's Gambit all over this.
I feel like she's too tall.
She might be too tall. That's fair.
She has like a really long vertical.
Vin is so meek.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, what was her opposite actor in The Last Night of Soho? God,
I could almost see
Thomasin McKenzie. I would also look at.
Who played Arya Stark?
Maisie Williams.
That's Maisie
I said
Williams,
her a second
yeah.
ago. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Perpetually 12.
I just feel like that's too obvious. You know, and like Maisie,
Yeah.
I don't know, like she already played the like little girl to adult trope, but maybe
she
that's
literally has
fine.
done
Maybe
that.
she can do it
Yeah.
again. Good for her. Get your bag. I don't know.
I almost want everyone to be nobodies in like everything that I want. Like
I agree.
every adaptation, I want it to be entirely fresh.
Yes, if it's an adaptation of a book, I want it to be people that I do not know. At least for the main characters. Side characters, it can be fun to throw in people, but
Yeah. That feels right to me.
Mm-hmm.
I can agree with that. Cast it a la Harry Potter. There were a bunch of nobodies and it become, renowned.
that also went poorly
So.
for them though, because Harry and Ron were supposed to be super tall, and then Rupert Grint and Daniel Radcliffe both ended up being like 5'6", 5'7".
Yeah, very short comparatively. Okay, so I want to ask one final question, then we'll do a lightning round to kind of end the episode. So I think this is a great question to ask in any book that you're reading, because I think it's an interesting thing to think about. But favorite point of view that you get in the book itself, which we get a number of point of views over the course of the story. But then on top of that, if you could inhabit any other character's point of view throughout the novel, who would you choose? I'll give you mine to just like lead you in here a little bit for me. So I really love Carr's perspective. PJ and I were talking about this earlier this morning at like 8 when I woke up, because he called me and he was like, hey, and I was like, I'm barely awake and I'm going to make coffee now. But I think Carr as oh my God, Inquisitor. Am I losing my mind?
Yep.
It's Inquisitor, right? Like I'm not? Yep. Okay. All right. Anyway, as an Inquisitor...
You are also losing your mind, but that's unrelated.
Well, I'm thinking like First Law, and my brain went in the wrong direction. I was confusing terms again, of which I've done once or twice on the show. But so as an Inquisitor, I think Carr's perspective is really interesting. It's a really interesting perspective to follow, even for just that 2 pages that we get it. And his perspective before Vin breaks in, and then we get the whole like end of the book with the Lord Ruler. I think that's crazy. I would love more Inquisitor perspective in general. I do really love, and I think that I would really appreciate more perspective from another crew member. I'll specifically point out, I think Ham has some of the best perspective and like is one of the most interesting characters because he's so philosophically driven. He's contemplating the environment and the world that he lives in all the time. And he's always posing those questions. So I think Ham would lend something to the story if we sat in his perspective for a bit. So I'd pick Ham. Hammond. Give me Hammond.
Give me
Hammond. Don Lee.
That's interesting. I think if I could have a spin-off series, I don't think it would be helpful in the first book. I would like Shan's perspective just because because like what we talked about before, where like Sanderson kind of writes female stereotypes in like a non-sexual way, which is refreshing but also boring, and I just want to hear what's up in her head. She reminds me of the protagonist or the main character in The Shadows Between Us, which is, in my opinion, not a great book, but like it's a fun read. And I would love to hear like what, Shan's journey from being a Mistborn to kind of just pretending she's just a normal everyday allomancer to, what does Shan do at night? How does nobody know that this girl's a Mistborn? How does everybody think how is she so unassuming while also being so powerful? I think that'd be really interesting to hear.
Shan's would be great, I think, because you'd get like the noble lens in society too, and the secret Mistborn lens, like because she's been hiding it for so long. Yeah, that's great. I love that.
I want Spook's perspective.
Ooh,
because Spook seems so entirely misunderstood.
Yeah,
or everybody has the inability to understand because of his dialect and also just kind of being a young, awkward teenager.
PJ related hard to Spook in terms of like PJ when he experienced Spook's like relationship advances and things like that, he was like, this reminded me of being in junior high, like and like literally like going up to a girl for the first time and stuff like that.
And high school.
And your late 20s.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, me.
Do you also like Naruto run around campus?
Not that you can prove. No.
That's fair.
No. No, I do a good enough job standing out, just being me.
Aw, we love that.
I can appreciate that now. I didn't before. But just in general, Spook seems like somebody you could expand upon pretty substantially and get this like internal monologue of somebody who's very articulate and knows what he's talking about, but doesn't properly know how to communicate with the people that he's talking to.
That's a great call. I think especially like communication barriers make for very interesting point of view characters, especially in like a number of fantasy novels. I love that. That's a great inclusion. So we went through, I said Ham, Lindsay said Shan, you said, okay. Favorite point of views throughout the novels? Like we get Trusting, we have Kelsier, we have Vin, we have Carr, we have Dachshund. To begin our lightning.
I think Clara's interesting, but I got to go back to our girl Vin. I don't know.
I think I'd go with Vin as well. I really like Cars, but I don't think it's long enough for me to call it my favorite.
Right.
God, it's just so interesting for that moment.
It is.
And
Absolutely.
It's like it's flirtatious in that way from Brandon's point of view, where it's like, yes, this is what this could be.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like it. That's why I find it intoxicating. Okay, favorite character. Swear to God, if you choose Vin every time, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'm going to go with Spook again. I don't know. I really like Spook.
Lindsay?
I'm thinking.
Okay.
Either that or, what's his name? The older ska.
Menace.
I really like Menace as well.
I mean, I think, not to be super cliche, but I do like, as much as I've shit on him this episode, I do love Kelsier. Like,
yeah,
I can totally support someone who has like one agenda inside and one agenda that they broadcast to the world.
He's a single issue politician, you know?
Yeah, like I'm not good at hate on that. I think he's complex. I think he's deceptively complex. Yeah, I think Kelsier is really interesting.
Yeah,
his death hurt me.
Agreed. It's grieving. Like we lose both like what appears to be the main series antagonist through the Lord Ruler, and we lose the secondary protagonist, which is Kelsier at the same time. Oh,
yeah, I think my main character for the series is different than my favorite character rather for the first book. Oh, Cezad may be up there. Yeah, Cezad might be up there.
I gotta say, like my favorite character. Thinking about just this book as like a standout moment, I really think that among all of the sort of shit that is like lofted upon them and all the kind of crap that they deal with, I think that Reen, like the back scratchings of Reen throughout Vin's perspective are so important to the story that it would be hard to say that it's not a favorite moment collective. I don't like him. I don't like the character, but he's critical.
Sure.
And so I think that like Reen ends up being a favorite despite being despicable.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
You always know that you're going to learn something new about him when you hear him.
Right. Right. It's always like another thing. It's the next secret, as they say.
The next.
As Kelsier said. Yeah, there's always another secret. You know, it's Kelsier's whole thing. Okay, favorite scene, favorite moment. I gotta say, for me, it's the moment when the Ska stand up and they stab the Lord Ruler through the chest with the spears, and then subsequently the Lord Ruler backhands Kelsier so hard that he fucking dies.
Yeah, nothing happens.
And stabs him through the chest with a spear from himself. Like he's like, this doesn't fucking matter to me. That's my favorite moment. It just blows my mind every time. It's a backhand too. Like it's disrespectful.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the first real expose on combat as a Mistborn with Kelsier is my favorite.
So the heist where he's stealing the ATM.
Yep.
Got it.
I really like, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the one that comes to mind. I really like when they, for the first time, go down like, what's it called? The Mistborn Road, where there's all those.
Oh yeah, the Almantic Road.
The Almantic Road, with all those like metal bits in the road, and they're just kind of like boop, 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 you know, jumping along. That felt very, you know, for Vin, who's lived a life of secrecy and like kind of underground, both like emotionally and physically, and felt very contained. That felt very freeing to me. And I liked reading about her experience in that.
I also love that because she's figuring it out too. And she's working out. She's like, who did this? And
when Kelsier's not like babying her, he's not really holding her hand through it. He's like, well, figure it out. Here I go, you know? And I thought that was kind of cool.
Fucking deal. Fucking deal.
And I mean, at that point, it wasn't even like him telling her to figure it out. he didn't expect her to follow him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to follow me.
Who knows if he was going to, like, I'm sure he was going to teach her that at some point, but it's better for her to figure it out on her own, I think, narratively. And from a character perspective, we get to learn that she isn't content with just learning what's given to her, but going and exploring and learning on her own. So
that's powerful too, especially in a book that's so dominated by like male role models.
True.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Okay, final of the speed round questions here. And I'm going to aim this towards PJ, of course. And Lindsay, feel free to chime in if you can to some degree. But what are you looking forward to most in the next book?
Are you able to tell me if the next book is on the same timeline?
What does that mean? Yeah, it's the same characters.
Same characters, and
it's progressive.
Is chronologically
for the most part, yeah,
in order. Yeah. Okay, I'm really interested in learning what Elend is like as a king. Like he has so much like philosophy without action. Like we talked about that a lot with Lysander in Red Rising, of like philosophy without any action. And that's basically all we get from Elend up until the very, very end of the book. And seeing how he actually applies himself in a position of power, I think will be really interesting to see.
Lindsay, did you have anything that you were looking forward to between books, or do you have anything that you'd, highlight as a hope for the next book?
I think between books 1 and 2, I was trying to figure out if Kelsier was actually dead. But we already talked about that.
Yeah.
That was my big
That's a fair point.
That was my big thing. Yep. I was like, they can't kill him off. He's the main character.
Totally. Yeah. For me, it was always the going book to book. It was more the context of the Lord Ruler is what I was looking for. I was like, how the hell, what happened to make that man this thing? How did the world shift? Because clearly it did. Like, what happened? And that's what I like really wanted from like book to book. Like that was the answer that I was seeking.
That's the other thing that I'm looking forward to is the final warning from the Lord Ruler was basically alluding to the fact that he was still actively doing something for humanity, and that by destroying him, you are dooming humanity in some sort of way. So whatever that means, learning what that means will be fun, or not fun.
Because he was very adamant. Like, well, you fucked up. So what does that look like? What is that? Yeah.
What is that? Fantastic. Okay. Final thing, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to open it up. Do you guys have anything else that you want to talk about? Any other thoughts on the novel? General comments? Questions? Concerns?
I've said
policy issues. Have you?
I have.
Just kidding.
I don't think I really have anything more to expand upon. Right. I'm still curious. Like, I'm constantly thinking about what you guys were talking about right away in the episode, or even before the episode. What could make this young adult and what doesn't, and where is that line?
Well,
to listen to
much like Red Rising, does that change? Does the genre change or not as we go forward?
Lindsay was pitching the delineation because we get into that quite a bit in
the romance short pour episode that you should all listen to, and then you'll find out.
Yeah. Like, people have made this joke a couple of times. They're like, it's not a short pour, it's a long pour. Like, you're still recording a lot of content. And I'm like, well, it's once a month. Like, that's generally the idea going forward. But
it's also a single...
It's many shots.
It's a single episode for a piece of media, as opposed to an entire, like... How many months have we been tackling Mistborn? A couple months now?
Well, yeah, now it's like 3, but yeah.
This is episode 11?
Yep,
yeah,
so 3 months.
Been doing them weekly. So being able to tackle one thing in one episode is much shorter than an entire series. So doesn't mean that they're short episodes. It just means that it's not a series.
Yeah, we're not doing the same kind of methodical breakdown. Totally. And definitely go listen to that. Obviously, this comes out the same week as the romance episode does. People should definitely check that out. It's a 2-parter, each one about an hour 45-ish, depending on the timeline that we actually ended up with in the post when it gets broken up. You can obviously listen to Lindsay and I talk about it there, in addition to an incredible quote, harem, quote, of women.
That is a self-appointed title. Don't worry, Crossland didn't just say that.
It was not something that I did. I actually said cavalcade because I wanted the proper no.
Yeah, then we said, no, that's dumb.
And then you're like, fuck that. Let's go. We're going deep on this shit right away, which is great. So there's that. But Lindsay, with that, where else can people find and interact with you if you want to share?
Unless I'm like hiding under a rock. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Lindsbaefundeen, LINDSBAEFUNDEEN. The name started as a meme, and now we're just rolling with it. I'd love to connect with you there or here. Or if you join the Patreon, we can chat on the Discord.
Yes, Lindsay is a member. She's there hanging out as one of our contributors, of course, because she's been on the show a couple of times and probably will be in the future. So
I hope so.
Yeah, it was so great. This was awesome. We're so glad to have you on the show.
It was so fun. Thanks for having me. I would love to be back. Everyone who's listening, write them a lot of strongly worded emails about how much you love me, and then I'll be back.
You can email us at
that was my segue.
wordsandwhiskyshow@gmail.com or on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, wordswhiskeypod. And if you want to join us and just chat with us directly, patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey.
Yes, as Lindsay mentioned, you can definitely join us there. Beyond that, oh my God, I lost everything all of a sudden, all at once. Beyond that, follow us there. Next week, before we totally ditch out of this, we are reading chapters 1 through 7 of The Well of Ascension. We've got a bunch of stuff coming out. We also have on February 22nd, so this is coming out on the 17th. Next week, the following week, we have a short pour episode coming out with Rob Hart, of which we've teased across episodes and episodes and episodes, which is so great. It's a solid hour 20 interview that I think everyone would love. We cover a gamut of topics from the book himself, the books, writing habits, Star Wars, and kind of some thoughts there because he's written a short story that impacted the canon of Star Wars. So we had a whole thing there, which was fun.
I will say, I'm just going to announce this right now. I haven't talked to Crossland about this, but I am planning on doing the Paradox Hotel as an episode of PJ's Symposium of Media and Whimsy, which should also be out as a podcast by then. Maybe.
That will start in March.
Starting in March. All right.
When the whole thing kicks off. This is going to be a crazy month. It's been a crazy month so far. Lindsay has contributed to many of the things. We're so grateful to have you here. And thanks so much to everyone at home.
Thank you for having me.